Blind dog smells smoke and saves entire family. His sixth sense is amazing. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel. Your subscription means everything to us and is the only way to ensure that the stories of these incredible animals, who often go unheard, reach more people. Your support helps us continue our work, so please subscribe now. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, the night was peaceful, yet something sinister was brewing. Simba, a blind golden retriever, lay curled up on the living room rug, unaware of the danger creeping toward him. The air, normally filled with the scent of home-cooked meals and fresh laundry, began to shift, carrying an unfamiliar, acrid odor that only Simba could detect. As the flames flickered in the basement below, a nightmare was unfolding, and time was running out. Simba had always relied on his extraordinary sense of smell, a gift that had grown stronger in the absence of sight. He had spent countless nights guiding his family with gentle nudges and reassuring barks, his presence a comforting anchor in their lives. But tonight was different. The faint wisp of smoke reached his sensitive nose, igniting a primal instinct deep within him. He jumped to his feet, fur bristling with urgency, and began to bark. His heart raced. Something was wrong, and he needed to alert his family before it was too late. In the stillness of the night, his barks echoed through the house, a desperate plea for attention. His family, lost in the serene embrace of sleep, stirred at first but then rolled over, oblivious to the impending disaster. Simba nudged his owners, his determination growing with every passing second. He could feel the heat, the danger, and the urgency in the air. This was not just a dream. This was a call to action, a fight for survival. As Simba continued to bark, his instincts kicked into overdrive. He sensed the fear in the air, the change that alerted him to the flames slowly consuming their home. Each sniff brought clarity to the chaos, and as he charged toward the bedrooms, he was fueled by a singular thought: he must save his family. The bond they shared transcended words. It was a connection woven through love, trust, and now, the instinct to survive. As Simba darted through the dimly lit hallway, the urgency of the moment pulsed in his veins. His heart raced not just from fear, but from a deep-rooted instinct to protect. He could hear the soft breaths of his family, unaware of the danger that lurked below them. He stopped at the bedroom door, a familiar scent lingering in the air. The comforting aroma of his owners mingled with that acrid smoke that was now thickening dangerously. "Mom! Dad!" he barked, the urgency in his voice rising. The sound reverberated against the walls, echoing like a warning siren. In the master bedroom, Sarah stirred, her brow furrowing at the disturbance. "Simba, what's wrong?" she mumbled, rubbing her eyes, still caught in the grasp of sleep. "Why is he acting like this?" Mark, her husband, muttered groggily, turning over in bed. But Simba wouldn't let them dismiss him so easily. He pressed his nose against the door, scratching gently with his paw. "Simba, stop!" Sarah exclaimed, finally sitting up. The concern in her voice sliced through the fog of sleep. "What is it, boy?" Simba stepped back slightly, sensing her confusion but knowing he couldn't stop. He began to bark again, louder this time, with a fierce intensity that demanded their attention. "Something's wrong," Sarah said, urgency creeping in her voice as she leaped out of bed. She could see the frantic energy radiating from Simba, his tail a blur. "Mark, wake up! I think he's trying to tell us something." Mark groaned but sat up slowly, squinting through the darkness. As Sarah hurried to the window, Simba darted back and forth between them, his instincts guiding him. He could feel the heat intensifying, the smoke curling around his nose, and he knew they had to move fast. "Maybe he senses something outside," Mark suggested, still half asleep. But as he joined Sarah at the window, he caught a whiff of the smoke for the first time. Panic flooded his chest. "Oh no, it's coming from downstairs." The couple exchanged a frantic look, their hearts racing as they both understood the urgency of the situation. "We need to get the kids," Sarah shouted, dashing toward the other bedrooms. Simba followed closely, his senses heightened as he led the way, navigating the familiar landscape of their home with practiced ease. As they reached the first bedroom, Sarah pushed open the door. "Iya, Jack, wake up," she called, urgency lacing her voice. Ella, their 6-year-old daughter, stirred, rubbing her eyes in confusion. Jack, only 3, slept soundly, blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding around him. "What's wrong, Mommy?" Ella asked, her voice a mix of sleep and concern. "Simba senses something bad. We need to get out," Sarah said, her tone leaving no room for argument. She rushed to Jack's crib, scooping him up in her arms as Simba nudged Ella gently, encouraging her to follow. Mark stood guard at the door, ensuring the path was clear, his heart pounding in his chest. "Hurry, we don't have much time." Simba, sensing the urgency, barked again, leading the way toward the exit. The smoke was now thickening, and the acrid smell stung their eyes. As they reached the living room, the flickering glow of flames was visible through the doorway leading to the basement. "Stay close to me," Sarah instructed, clutching Jack tightly and guiding Ella with her other hand. Simba, ever watchful, kept pace, his heart pounding as he led them towards safety. Outside, the cool night air greeted them, a stark contrast to the chaos inside. They stumbled onto the lawn, gasping for breath, their hearts racing from fear and adrenaline. Mark quickly dialed 911, his voice shaking as he reported the fire. As they stood there, watching the house they had built together, Simba remained vigilant, his body tense and ready. Neighbors began to emerge, drawn by the commotion, whispering among themselves as they spotted the flames licking the sides of the house. "Did they escape?" one neighbor asked, wide-eyed, clutching her child tightly. "Looks like that dog saved them," another remarked, pointing at Simba, who remained alert and watchful. "Why wouldn't he leave? Is he waiting for something?" a child whispered, eyes wide with curiosity and awe. Some thought Simba was waiting for the family to return, while others speculated he was guarding something precious inside. But the truth was far more profound. Simba was their protector, a beacon of hope in the midst of chaos. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to comment from where you are hearing this amazing story. As the fire trucks arrived, sirens blaring, Simba stood resolute, the smoke curling around him like a dark shroud. He could still smell the flames, the remnants of what could have been a tragedy. But he had acted on instinct, and in that moment, he was not just a blind dog. He was a hero. The family huddled together on the lawn, shivering but safe, their hearts swelling with gratitude. They knew that without Simba's extraordinary senses, they might not have made it out in time. As the firefighters rushed into the house, Simba watched closely, his body tense, ready to spring into action if needed. He had saved them once. He would do it again if necessary. The bond they shared was unbreakable, a testament to the love and loyalty that transcended sight. In that moment, under the twinkling stars, the family realized that even in darkness, they had a light guiding them home. Simba, their blind but fearless protector, stood strong, embodying the spirit of love and courage that defined their lives together. As the fire trucks blared their sirens and the red lights danced across the lawn, Simba stood vigilant, his nose twitching as he processed the chaotic scents swirling around him. The firefighters jumped into action, rushing toward the house, while the family huddled together, their hearts pounding in unison. But as the firefighters began their work, a profound revelation began to unfold. The family, shaken but grateful, felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over them. They had always taken Simba's abilities for granted, viewing him primarily as a loving pet, a companion that needed their care and protection. Yet in that moment, they were confronted with the stark reality that he was their savior, the one who had risked everything to pull them from the brink of disaster. Mark, still on the phone with emergency services, glanced at Simba, his thoughts racing. "We always thought of him as the one who needed us," he murmured, his voice a mix of disbelief and gratitude. "But tonight, he was the one who saved us." Sarah, holding Jack close to her chest, nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. "I can't believe it took a fire for us to see how incredible he truly is," she replied, her heart swelling with love for the dog who had always been there, but had never truly been appreciated for his unique gifts. As the firefighters worked to extinguish the flames, a sudden realization hit Sarah. What if it wasn't just his nose? She pondered aloud, her mind racing. What if he sensed the smoke and heat in a way we never understood? He's been blind for years, but maybe that's what heightened his other senses. We've underestimated him all this time. Just then, a firefighter approached the family. "Are you all okay?" he asked, his tone professional yet warm. "We're getting the fire under control, but we need to know if anyone else is inside." Simba, sensing the gravity of the situation, moved closer to the firefighter, his body tense and alert. The firefighter noticed Simba's demeanor and knelt down beside him. "You're a brave boy, aren't you?" he said, scratching behind Simba's ears. "Did you lead your family out?" The family exchanged glances, their hearts swelling with pride. "He did," Sarah confirmed, her voice trembling with emotion. "He saved us." As the firefighter stood up, a new thought crossed his mind. I've seen dogs do extraordinary things in emergencies, but this one is special. It's often the ones we think are at a disadvantage who surprise us the most. Mark nodded, a flicker of realization dawning within him. "That's true," he said, his voice steadying. "We've always treated him as if he needed us, but maybe he's been the one protecting us all along. His blindness doesn't make him less. It makes him different, and different can be extraordinary." At that moment, Simba turned his head, his ears perked up as if he understood the weight of their conversation. The family's assumptions about their beloved dog began to shift, revealing their hidden prejudices, the belief that disability equated to helplessness. As the firefighters continued to battle the flames, one of them approached the family again. "We often see incredible stories of service animals saving lives," he said. "But this one seems to have a story that goes deeper. Have you thought about training him for search and rescue?" Simba's ears perked up at the mention of training. The family looked at each other, their hearts racing with excitement and newfound purpose. "Could he really?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with hope. The firefighter nodded. "Absolutely. His sense of smell is a gift, and with proper training, he could become an invaluable asset to our team. It might just give him a new focus, a new way to use his unique abilities." Simba, still alert and aware, seemed to understand the conversation. He wagged his tail slightly, as if to say he was ready for whatever came next. The family felt a shift in their perspective. What started as a night of terror transformed into a moment of awakening. They had seen Simba as a dependent pet, but now they understood the depth of his capabilities. They could harness that potential, allowing him to thrive and serve in ways they had never imagined. As the fire was finally under control, the family watched the embers fade and the smoke clear. They stood together, hands interlinked, their hearts united by a shared understanding. No longer would they see Simba simply as their blind dog. He was a hero, a protector, and possibly a future lifesaver. In the days that followed, they began researching search and rescue programs, eager to help Simba channel his extraordinary abilities into something more. They realized that by fostering his skills, they could not only honor his instincts but also forge a deeper bond that would forever change their lives. In the quiet moments of recovery, as they rebuilt their home and their lives, the family found joy in their new mission. They were not just a family with a blind dog. They were a team, ready to face the challenges ahead, guided by the unwavering spirit of their remarkable companion. Simba had opened their eyes to the truth that sometimes the greatest gifts come in unexpected forms, and the love shared between them was a powerful force capable of overcoming any obstacle. Together, they would embrace this new journey, transforming what was once seen as a limitation into a beacon of hope and inspiration for others. And so, they began their adventure, united by love, loyalty, and a newfound appreciation for the extraordinary abilities of a blind dog who had saved them all. The fire had brought them to the brink of despair, but it also ignited a flame of purpose, resilience, and an unbreakable bond that would shine brightly in their hearts forever. As the smoke drifted into the night sky, mingling with the stars, the family clung to each other on the lawn, their hearts still racing from the harrowing escape. The sight of their home, once a sanctuary, now engulfed in flames, sent a chill down their spines. But as the firefighters worked tirelessly to extinguish the fire, a new tension began to simmer within the family. A sense of uncertainty about what had truly happened. "Do you think it was an accident?" Mark asked, his brow furrowed with worry. He glanced back at the flames, their crackling sound a harsh reminder of the danger they had narrowly escaped. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her voice trembling slightly. "But I can't shake the feeling that something feels off. What if it was started on purpose?" Simba, ever vigilant, stood by their side, his nose twitching as he scanned the area. It was as if he too sensed the unease hanging in the air. The family's thoughts began to spiral into a whirlwind of possibilities. What if the fire had been a warning? What if their lives were still in danger? Meanwhile, the firefighters, focused on their task, began to gather more information. One of them approached Mark, clipboard in hand. "We need to ask a few questions," he said, his tone serious. "Did you notice anything strange before the fire? Any unusual activity or people around?" Mark shook his head. "No, not that I can think of. We were all asleep when it started." "Even so, we'll need to investigate," the firefighter replied. "Fires don't just happen. We'll look into the cause and see if there's anything suspicious." As the family listened, a knot formed in Sarah's stomach. The thought that someone could have intentionally put their family in danger was unbearable. "What if they come back?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We have to stay strong," Mark reassured her, though he couldn't hide the worry etched on his face. "Simba's here, and he'll protect us." But as the firefighters continued their work, another firefighter, a woman named Jenna, approached them. She noticed Simba's alertness and knelt beside him. "He's quite the remarkable dog," she said with admiration. "You should consider training him for search and rescue. He has an innate ability." Mark glanced at Sarah, and they both felt a flicker of hope. "We were just talking about that," Mark replied. "But right now, I'm more concerned about what caused the fire." Jenna nodded, her expression serious. "I understand. But remember, while we work to find answers, you should also consider your safety. If there's a threat, it's important to remain vigilant." The family exchanged glances, their minds racing. They had barely escaped the fire, and now they were facing an unknown threat. They had to confront this new reality head-on. They couldn't afford to bury their heads in the sand. As the firefighters cleared the area, the family retreated to their neighbor's home, seeking refuge and warmth. The Johnsons, their kind-hearted neighbors, welcomed them with open arms, providing blankets and hot cocoa. But even in this safe haven, the atmosphere felt heavy with unspoken worries. "Do you think we should call the police?" Sarah suggested, her voice laced with anxiety. "Just to be sure?" "Maybe," Mark agreed, his fingers tapping nervously against the table. "But I don't want to overreact." Before they could reach a consensus, a loud knock echoed through the Johnsons' home. The family jumped at the sudden sound. "I'll get it," Jenna said, standing up. She opened the door to reveal a tall figure shrouded in darkness. "Is this the family that lived at 123 Elm Street?" the figure asked, his voice low and gravelly. Mark stepped forward, instinctively standing protectively in front of Sarah and the kids. "Who are you?" he demanded, his heart racing. "I'm Detective Harris," the man replied, flashing his badge. "I'm investigating the fire. I need to ask you a few questions." The family exchanged worried looks. "We've already spoken to the firefighters," Mark said, his voice firm. "I understand," Detective Harris replied, his tone calming. "But I have reason to believe this was no accident. I need to know everything you remember leading up to it." As the detective began to question them, Simba remained by their side, his presence a silent reassurance. The family recounted their evening, the normalcy of their routine contrasting sharply with the chaos that had ensued. But as they spoke, a chilling thought crept into Sarah's mind. "What if someone was watching us?" she whispered, the words escaping her lips before she could stop them. Detective Harris's eyes narrowed, intrigued by her comment. "You might be onto something. Have you noticed anyone unusual in the neighborhood? Strange cars or people lingering too long?" The family racked their memories, but nothing stood out. Yet, as they spoke, Simba's behavior changed. He began to sniff the air, his tail stiffening as he focused on a scent that had caught his attention. "What is it, boy?" Mark asked, kneeling down next to Simba. The dog's instincts kicked in, and he turned toward the back window, his body tense and alert. "Is he picking up a scent?" Detective Harris asked, intrigued. Simba's nose twitched, and he started to whine softly, a sound that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "He's sensing something," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Let's check it out," Harris suggested, standing up and moving toward the window. The family followed, curiosity mingling with trepidation. As they peered outside, they spotted a shadowy figure lurking at the edge of the yard. The figure seemed to be watching their home, their presence sending a wave of cold fear through the family. "Who is that?" Mark whispered, his heart racing. Detective Harris reached for his radio, his expression serious. "I'm going to call this in. Stay inside and keep the doors locked." The family huddled together, their hearts pounding as they watched the figure. Simba's body remained tense, his instincts on high alert. The family realized that the danger they had narrowly escaped was not just a fading memory. It was now staring them in the face. As the detective communicated with his team, the figure suddenly turned and darted away, disappearing into the shadows of the night. "Did you see that?" Sarah gasped, her voice filled with disbelief. "They were watching us." Detective Harris nodded, his expression grave. "This changes everything. We need to find out who that was and why they were here." As the family stood in the warm glow of the Johnsons' living room, they felt the weight of the world pressing down upon them. The fire had ignited not just flames, but a deep sense of unease and fear. They had escaped one danger, only to confront another, more sinister threat. That night, as they settled into their temporary home, the reality of their situation settled in. They were no longer just a family with a blind dog. They were a family under siege, fighting against an unseen enemy. And with Simba by their side, they knew they had to face whatever came next, together. The air was thick with tension, and the bond between them grew stronger as they prepared to confront the truth behind the fire and the lurking figure. The stakes had never been higher, and they were determined to protect their family at all costs. As they lay in the dark, Simba curled up beside them, a sense of calm washed over them. They were ready to face the unknown, united and resolute. The air was thick with tension as the family huddled together in the Johnsons' living room, their minds racing with possibilities. The shadowy figure that had been lurking outside was a chilling reminder that danger was still near. But even as they faced this new threat, another unsettling thought gnawed at Sarah's mind. "What if someone had a grudge against us?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "What if they wanted to harm us?" Mark's brow furrowed in concern. "That seems extreme, Sarah. We've always been good neighbors. Why would anyone want to hurt us?" But as the reality of the situation settled in, the family couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability. They had always lived peacefully in their quiet neighborhood, but now they were confronted with the very real possibility that someone had targeted them. Jenna, the firefighter who had been supportive throughout the ordeal, returned to the room. "I've talked to my team, and we're going to increase patrols in the area tonight," she assured them. "But you should also consider staying with family or friends until we figure this out." "Thanks, but we'll be okay here," Mark replied, though his voice lacked conviction. The thought of leaving their home, even temporarily, felt wrong. This was their safe space, or it had been until tonight. As hours passed, the family found it hard to sleep. Simba remained alert, occasionally letting out low growls as he scanned the room. His instincts were sharp, and the family felt reassured by his presence. But it was clear that the fire had ignited more than just flames. It had sparked fears and insecurities they had buried deep. In the depths of the night, after the adrenaline had begun to fade, Sarah turned to Mark. "Do you think we've overlooked anything? Anyone who might have wanted to hurt us?" Mark pondered this, his mind racing. "I can't think of anyone, but we live in a world where people hide their true intentions. Maybe we should consider reaching out to others in the neighborhood." The next day, as the sun rose, illuminating the remnants of their charred home, the family decided to gather their neighbors. They needed to understand what had happened and if anyone else had noticed anything strange. As they convened in the Johnsons' backyard, The atmosphere was thick with suspicion. Everyone shared their stories, but it was clear that fear had seeped into their community. One neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, spoke up. "I did see a strange car parked outside your house a few nights ago. I thought nothing of it, but now I can't shake the feeling it was connected." The family exchanged worried glances. "What did it look like?" Mark asked, his heart racing. "It was dark, maybe a sedan. I didn't recognize it," Mrs. Thompson replied, her voice trembling. "But I saw someone sitting inside for quite some time." Simba, who had been quietly resting at the family's feet, suddenly perked up. His nose twitched, and he began to sniff the air, sensing something that the humans couldn't. Sarah noticed his behavior and knelt beside him. "What is it, boy?" As if responding to her question, Simba turned his head toward the back of the yard, his body tense. The family watched in confusion, unsure of what he was sensing. But as he began to bark, a realization washed over them. Could he be picking up the scent of the person from the car? Mark wondered aloud. The group fell silent, their eyes fixed on Simba. Detective Harris, who had joined them for the neighborhood meeting, knelt beside the dog. "It's possible. If he can track scents, we might be able to find something useful." Encouraged by this revelation, the family decided to follow Simba. They led him to the edge of their backyard, where the grass was still scorched from the fire. Simba sniffed around, his instincts guiding him toward a path along the fence. As they followed, Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. What if Simba could lead them to answers? What if they could uncover the truth behind the fire? Simba stopped abruptly, his nose hovering close to the ground. The family gathered around him, their eyes wide with hope. "What is it, boy? Did you find something?" Sarah asked, her voice a mix of excitement and anxiety. Just then, a rustling sound caught their attention. From the bushes emerged a small, scrappy dog, its eyes wide with fear. The dog looked lost and disoriented, as if it had been abandoned. Sarah knelt down, her heart softening. "Hey there, little one. Are you okay?" she cooed, reaching out her hand. But as the scrappy dog approached, Simba's demeanor changed. He growled lowly, his protective instincts igniting again. The family was taken aback. "Why is he acting like this?" Mark asked, concerned. Detective Harris observed closely. "It's possible he senses something about this dog. It could be a sign that there's more to the story." As they watched the scrappy dog cautiously approach, Simba's growl intensified. The tension in the air was palpable. Suddenly, the scrappy dog bolted back into the bushes, a flash of movement that left everyone startled. "Did you see that?" Sarah gasped. It was like he was scared of something. Jenna, who had been observing quietly, stepped forward. "This might be a clue. If this dog was abandoned, it could mean someone was involved in something sinister. Perhaps they left this dog behind in a hurry." The family exchanged glances, their minds racing with the implications. What if the fire was a cover for something more? What if they were not just victims, but unwittingly involved in a larger scheme? As they turned to Simba, who remained alert and focused, a new understanding emerged. They realized that their blind dog had an extraordinary ability not just to protect, but to sense danger in ways they had never fully understood. His instincts were sharper than they had ever imagined, and now he was leading them into uncharted territory. With renewed determination, they decided to follow the scent trail Simba had picked up. They carefully ventured beyond their yard, through the neighborhood, and into a nearby wooded area. The air grew thick with suspense as they navigated the terrain, guided by Simba's unwavering focus. As they ventured deeper into the woods, they stumbled upon a clearing filled with debris and remnants of what appeared to be a makeshift camp. Old blankets, discarded food wrappers, and dog toys littered the ground. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "What is this place?" Detective Harris examined the area, his expression grave. "It looks like someone was living here. We need to be cautious." As they investigated further, Simba began to bark enthusiastically, his tail wagging as he sniffed around. It was clear that he had found something significant. The family followed him to a pile of leaves, where he began to dig with fervor. "What did you find, Simba?" Mark asked, kneeling beside him. As Simba dug, a glint of metal caught their eye. With a few more nudges, he unearthed a small, rusted box. "Open it," Sarah urged, her heart racing. Mark carefully pried open the box, revealing its contents: a collection of photos, letters, and a key. The family's breath caught in their throats as they examined the items. The photographs depicted a family that looked eerily similar to theirs, standing in front of a house that was unmistakably their own. "What is this?" Sarah exclaimed, her mind racing. "Who are they?" Detective Harris studied the photos closely. "These could be crucial to our investigation. We need to find out who this family is and why they were here." The discovery sent shockwaves through the family. They realized that the fire was just the tip of the iceberg. There was a deeper story unfolding, one that intertwined their lives with those of strangers. Simba had not only saved them from a fire, he had led them to uncover a mystery that challenged everything they thought they knew. As they stood in the dim light of the clearing, the weight of the unknown hung heavy in the air. But with Simba by their side, they felt a newfound strength and resolve to uncover the truth behind the fire and the secrets lurking in the shadows. In that moment, they understood that they were not just survivors. They were investigators, determined to unravel the threads of a story that had only just begun. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with challenges, but they faced it together, united by love, loyalty, and the unwavering spirit of their extraordinary blind dog. With the discovery of the rusted box, the air was charged with anticipation. The family gathered close, their eyes wide with curiosity as they sifted through the contents. The photographs of a family eerily similar to their own sent a chill down Sarah's spine. "Who are they?" she whispered, her heart racing. Detective Harris inspected the letters, his brow furrowing. "These appear to be correspondence between family members. If we can find out who they are, we might uncover the motive behind the fire." Simba, still alert, sniffed the air, his senses attuned to the lingering mystery. He seemed to understand the importance of their findings, his presence a steady anchor amidst the uncertainty. The family decided to take the box to the local police station, where the detective could conduct a more thorough investigation. As they walked back through the woods, Simba led the way, his tail wagging with purpose. The sun cast a warm glow, but the shadows of their recent trauma still loomed large. When they arrived at the station, the atmosphere was tense. They placed the box on the desk, and Detective Harris wasted no time. "I'll get to work on this right away," he said, his voice steady. "But I need you to stay vigilant. If someone is targeting you, it's crucial that you remain cautious." The family nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. They returned home, the weight of the unknown pressing heavily on their shoulders. That night, they huddled together, Simba curled at their feet, a comforting presence against the backdrop of uncertainty. Days turned into a blur of phone calls, investigations, and sleepless nights. The family's anxiety grew as they waited for answers, each creak of the house amplifying their fears. But through it all, Simba remained their steadfast protector, always alert to the slightest change in the air. Finally, the breakthrough came. Detective Harris called them with urgency in his voice. "I need you at the station. We've identified the family in the photographs." As they rushed to the station, a mix of hope and dread filled their hearts. They arrived to find Detective Harris waiting, a deeply concerned expression etched on his face. "The family in those photos lived here years ago," he explained. "They had a history of disputes with your current neighbors. It seems they never fully moved on." Mark felt a knot form in his stomach. "So, someone is holding a grudge against us because of them?" "Possibly," Harris replied. "We're investigating the neighbors closely. They may have been involved in the fire. We need to keep you safe." As the detective spoke, Sarah's thoughts drifted back to the shadowy figure they had seen lurking outside their home. "What about that person we saw? Could it be someone related to that family?" Harris nodded. "It's a possibility. We'll have increased patrols around your neighborhood, and I suggest you stay with friends or family until we get to the bottom of this." The family exchanged glances, the unease still heavy in the air. But they knew they had to take action. "We'll do whatever it takes to keep our family safe," Mark declared, determination in his voice. That evening, they moved in with the Johnsons, their kind-hearted neighbors who had become a source of support. As they settled into their temporary home, Simba remained vigilant, always alert, his presence a source of comfort amidst the turmoil. As the days passed, the investigation deepened, and the family learned more about the history of the house and its former residents. They discovered that the previous family had experienced a series of unfortunate events, leading to a contentious relationship with the neighbors. It became clear that the fire was more than just an accident. It was a catalyst for buried resentment and unresolved conflicts. One afternoon, as they sat together in the Johnsons' living room, Mark turned to Sarah. "What if we reached out to the neighbors? Maybe we can resolve this peacefully?" Sarah hesitated. "Do you think they would listen? They've shown nothing but hostility." "Maybe they need to understand that we're not the enemies," Mark replied. "We can't live in fear forever." Encouraged by his words, the family agreed to have a conversation with the neighbors. They arranged a meeting, hoping to bridge the gap and find a way forward. Simba, sensing the tension, stayed close to their side, ready to protect them. On the day of the meeting, they approached the neighbor's house with trepidation. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, but they knew they had to confront the past to reclaim their future. As they knocked on the door, their hearts raced. When the door opened, they were greeted by Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who had lived in the neighborhood for decades. She looked surprised but invited them in. "We've been meaning to talk," she said, her voice shaky. "This has been a difficult time for everyone." As they sat around the table, the family shared their experiences, their fears, and their hopes for understanding. They spoke of the fire and the shadows that had loomed over their lives since. Mrs. Thompson listened intently, her eyes softening as she absorbed their words. "I had no idea you were going through all of this," she finally said. "We've been worried too, but we didn't know how to approach you." The conversation flowed, and the neighbors began to share their own experiences with the previous family, revealing a tangled history of misunderstandings and fear. As they opened up, the tension in the room began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. Simba, sensing the shift, lay down beside the table, his body relaxed. The family felt a sense of relief wash over them. They were no longer alone in their fears. They were part of a community willing to come together. By the end of the meeting, the family and their neighbors had forged a newfound understanding. They agreed to work together, keeping an eye on each other and ensuring everyone remained safe. The bond they formed that day became a beacon of hope amidst the lingering shadows. As they returned home that evening, Simba trotted alongside them, his tail wagging in contentment. The family felt a renewed sense of security, knowing they had allies in their community. They realized that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the weeks that followed, the investigation continued, but the family felt less burdened by fear. They embraced the support of their neighbors and worked to rebuild their lives, determined to create a safe and loving environment for their children. As the fire's memory began to fade, the family took time to appreciate the bond they shared with Simba. They began training him for search and rescue, recognizing the extraordinary potential within him. Each session deepened their connection and highlighted the incredible abilities of their blind dog. One sunny afternoon, as they trained in the park, Simba guided them through various tasks, showcasing his remarkable skills. The family was filled with pride, knowing that Simba was not just a pet, but a hero in every sense of the word. As they watched him work, Sarah turned to Mark, her eyes glistening with tears. "I never thought we would come this far. We've turned a tragedy into something beautiful." Mark nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. "We've learned so much about ourselves and each other. We've become stronger, and it's all thanks to Simba." The family embraced, their hearts full of love and appreciation for their extraordinary dog who had saved them time and again. They had turned a dark chapter into a story of resilience, community, and unwavering loyalty. As they looked toward the future, they knew they were ready for whatever came next. They had faced the shadows and emerged stronger, united by love and guided by the incredible spirit of their blind dog. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.